Good morning, everybody. I am here with Finnick today. Hi, Finnick. Happy Sabbath. I am not able to connect to the chat again, so give me just a second here as I connect via another device so that I can see what you all are saying. So today, for those of you who are here, our check-in question for today is, what is something that you did every day this week? What is something that you did every day this week? And so you can go ahead and answer in the chat. However, I won't be able to see it for the next little bit until I'm able to log in on a different device. And it takes me a little bit longer because I don't have the YouTube app on my phone, nor do I have an internet browser on my phone because I spent too much time on it. So I decided to delete those types of apps from my phone. So again, what is something that you did every day this week? Okay, a couple people saying sleep. Yes. Went to the zoo. Interesting. I would not have expected going to the zoo every day in 1 week would be something that would happen. That's good. That's good. Unless you're talking about that the zoo is just when you walk outside your bedroom door. That's the zoo. Uh, Gardening. Good. Good. Yeah. Oh, the zoo in the backyard. There you go. So the second question for today is, what is the most surprising thing about the daily videos? What is the most surprising thing about the daily videos so far? So I've done I think almost 30 of them. Aaron's done a couple. We've had people join us for a couple, but specifically for all of the ones that I have done, what is something that is surprising about those things? Seamus says he had toys and Legos. That's what he did every day this week. That's good. The blessings. Thank you, Keith. There's something that I'm looking for here in relation to especially if you have heard me speak many times over the past few years that we've been together, and then you have heard these videos. What is something that has been surprising? Because there's something that has surprised me. It's interesting looking at this on my phone because I can see myself live. There it is. A little phone inception there. We need a. You're always so upbeat. That is, I try to be. I try to be. Neither hint. So the answer that I was looking for there was that it's surprising that I'm able to give 5 minute sermons. That was the surprise there. I especially in the last since we have been together with me as the pastor, then my sermons just seem to get really long. I used to be able to keep it. It was pretty rare that I would ever go above 25-30 minutes. And the last several months, for some reason, they've been up closer to the hour mark. So it was surprising that I was able to reach 5 minutes in my sermons. So as always, if you want to continue to give your tithes and offerings, that is available for you at our website, wahpetonchurch.org.com, I think. Sorry, wahpetonchurch.com. You can also go to adventistgiving.com and find the church, and you'll be able to give that way if you would like to continue to give. We are going to look at Leviticus 23 today. We're going to be looking at Leviticus 23. This is one about the feasts and the festivals. And so if you have a Bible, open it up to Leviticus 23. We're going to kind of do a quick overview of the chapter, and then I'll read one section, and we'll talk about what are the principles that we can draw from this picture. And I have Finnick with me today because he wanted to be, because Finnick loves me. So Leviticus 23. That's where we're going to be spending our time today. This is a fascinating picture of the calendar of the things that matter to God. Is what we see in Leviticus 23. So we're going to jump right in. Get your Bible out, have it paper Bible on your phone, whatever it may be, and we'll look at the feasts. This chapter outlines the annual feasts, the things that the feasts that were supposed to happen once every year, that marked these holy days. This is what they were called. They were called holy days. So if you have a Bible like mine, it has the different section headings. All right, so the section headings for the whole chapter, the section heading is Feasts of the Lord. And then the section headings after that are the Sabbath, the Passover, the Feast of the First Fruits, the Feast of Weeks, the Feast of Trumpets, the Day of Atonement, which we talked about a few weeks ago, and the Feast of Booths, or the Feast of Tabernacles. Now, what's nice about having section titles like that is it makes it really easy to count. So if we just look 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. All right. So at this point, we shouldn't even be surprised that we see a number 7, that in the calendar year, there are 7 feasts that we are supposed to observe. What we see is there are three festivals that happen in the springtime when the farmers would be planting, and during the planting season, the springtime, 3 festivals. And then there are 3 festivals in the fall around harvest time. And all of these 6 festivals are anchored in the weekly Sabbath. Right? The weekly Sabbath, the 4th commandment in the 10, the commandment that bridges the first 3 and the last 4, this commandment that says, that provides the bridge between this is how you have devotion to God, and then this is how you live ethically in community with each other. The 4th commandment, the Sabbath, is the one that bridges those 2 things. So all of the festivals are anchored in this weekly Sabbath that we celebrate. And what we see here is that there is the 7th day, right? Seventh day Sabbath. There's the seventh day that happens every week. And then there are a whole bunch of festivals that happen in the seventh month. So the seventh month of the year is really important. It's the month of October. It's not in a Jewish calendar, the seventh month is around October. And the seventh month has 10 days that are feast days, that are holy days. And so in the seventh month, the Sabbath month of the year, then a full third of the entire month are feast days. They're essentially Sabbath days. So the seventh day, then the seventh month is also important. And there are 7 total festivals in the whole year. And these festivals have a lot of different things that are supposed to be happening, but there's kind of a recurring theme that we see in all of them except for the Day of Atonement, that these are days of rejoicing, that these are days of celebration and of pleasure. Other than the Day of Atonement, which we talked about last week, which was a more of a day of solemnity, because it was a day that my sins were being removed from me. So it's a day of celebration, but it's also a day of remembrance of, like, oh, these are the ways that I have messed up, but they are taken away from me. So there's this underarching theme of celebration. And so I want to read here verse 39. Leviticus 23, verse 39. It says that on the 15th day of the 7th month, when you have gathered in the produce of the land, you shall celebrate the feast of the Lord 7 days. On the first day shall be a solemn rest, and on the 8th day shall be a solemn rest. And you shall take on the first day the fruit of splendid trees, branches of palm trees, and boughs of leafy trees, and willows of the brook, and you shall rejoice before the Lord your God 7 days. You shall celebrate it as a feast to the Lord for 7 days in the year. It is a statute forever throughout your generations. You shall celebrate it in the 7th month. You shall dwell in booths for 7 days. All native Israelites shall dwell in booths, that your generations may know that I made the people of Israel dwell in booths when I brought them out of the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. So there is this thing that they're supposed to do every year. And the thing that it says is, hey, make sure you celebrate. Make sure you rejoice. Make sure you party when you celebrate these festivals. And it says that you are to dwell in booths for this whole festival, the 7-day festival. And it's this reminder, because the people of Israel, who were actually given this commandment, they were living in booths. They were living in tabernacles. They were living in tents. That this was their life, but they were headed towards the promised land, where they would build permanent homes. And once a year, they would come out of their permanent homes and build a temporary structure and live in it for a week as a reminder of what God had done for the people of Israel that came out of Egypt. It's essentially saying it's in the fall, right? And it's essentially saying, hey, we don't know what's coming for us in the winter. The winter is a time of uncertainty. It's a time of death, so that there can be a rebirth in spring, and we don't know what's coming. But we are reminded, by physically removing ourselves from our home and living in a temporary shelter, we're reminded that with our ancestors, God took care of them. When they were coming out of Egypt in the wilderness, God took care of our ancestors. And so we can now trust God today. Right? And this is a festival that is celebrated by modern Jewish people, that they still do this. And it's a time of remembrance, of saying, hey, God took care of our ancestors when they were in the wilderness. Let's do this once a year to remind ourselves that God can still take care of us today. So this is kind of a theme that's undergirding these feasts. But notice that it gives a calendar, like this chapter gives a calendar for everything that's going to happen in the coming year. What's missing? If this is a calendar, right? What's missing? What we have missing is the ordinary days. the days where you just work, right? Think about how we schedule our calendar. If we were to sit down and schedule out a year from now or a week from now, or schedule out what's happening today or tomorrow, what we do when we schedule out our time is we schedule our work, and we hope that there will be some leftover time for rest and for play. And so we schedule our work first, hoping that there's enough leftover time. But God, according to Leviticus, God says that that is actually backwards, that that is not the way that we ought to be scheduling time. These feasts are not leftovers in time. These are the thing that time is for, right? That these feasts are the reason why there's a schedule, why there's a calendar, is because these are the important thing. And so there are other days. There are days where you do your ordinary work, but these are the real thing. These are the real life. The thing that actually matters to schedule is not your work, hoping there's enough time for play at the end, but actually you schedule your play and then you fill it in with your work. That one is informed by the other. Right now, our play is informed by our work, and hopefully we can get our work done so we can play. But according to Leviticus, God says, no, you schedule these things first. You schedule your rest first. You schedule your play first, and then let it inform your work. That these things, according to Leviticus, they give meaning and purpose to all of the other days. These holy days give meaning and purpose to all the other days. How often do you come home from work and have nothing significant to say about what you did that day? Right? That it was just another day at work. It was the same as it always is. I went to work, I did the thing that I'd normally do, and then now I'm home. How often do we come home and we know something happened? We know we had some type of interesting conversation, but we don't have anything to say. Nothing significant happened. When we ask how was your day, it was fine. I went to work. But how often does that happen when we go to a party? When we go to a party, do we come home and it's like, oh, I went to a party, but I don't know what happened. Right? No, of course, because when we go to a party, there's always something to share. There was this food that we ate, and I've never had that before. There was this new game that we played, this story that someone told and made everyone laugh. Right? That when we have a party, then there's always some story that we can tell. And so this is what God is saying with these things. Like, that stuff is the true life. That's the real thing. That's what really matters. Let that inform all of your other days, not the other way around. This God insists that life is not a slog, that life is not just a rat race. This God sees life as joy and pleasure. There is other stuff that you go do, right? That there are other days that you fill in with work and ordinary things. But then you come back and you celebrate. That after a few months, you come back and there's another celebration. And then after a few months, you come back and there's another celebration again. That the celebration informs the work, not the other way around. In Egypt, where they had just left, their entire worth as a person was in bricks. How many bricks can you produce? And now your worth is found in your joy and your celebration. These feasts were God saying, you are not a human doing. You are a human being. And so I give you these feasts so that you can have a physical and tangible reminder that, hey, it's not about what you can produce and what you can consume, but about what you can celebrate, what you can be joyous in. You're not a human doing. You are a human being. It's a reclamation of your worth. And all of these festivals, the main admonition is, do not work. Don't do your ordinary work. Take some days off. And so to live in this calendar is to admit that it's not your job to keep things going. It is not your job to make sure that everything is working out perfectly. You are not a cog in a machine. You are not a number, but rather you are here to participate in a deep divine joy that brought the whole thing into existence and continues to sustain it. Right? Think about that. Think about that. I want to say that again. You are here to participate in a deep divine joy that brought the whole thing into existence and continues to sustain it. Right? The key to your joy is in stopping. We have this recurring question in our minds that if we stop, then what if there's not enough? What if I don't have enough? What if I can't provide for myself and for my family? What if there's not enough? And the key to joy, to true divine joy, is in stopping asking that question, is in stopping your work and trusting that there is enough, trusting that we will be okay. Stopping is a physical reminder that your job is not to keep it all going, that your job is to participate in this divine joy that created the entire universe and continues to sustain it. Abraham Joshua Heschel, I've mentioned him before. He was a Jewish rabbi, a preeminent thinker and scholar. He wrote a book about Sabbath. So I have it here, The Sabbath. It's a fantastic book, and something that is incredibly interesting about this book is he wrote this book in 1948. Well, it was published in 1948. So just after World War II was when Abraham Joshua Heschel was writing this book. So just after, there had been a mass slaughter of 6 million Jews. 6 million of his brothers and sisters were murdered. And Abraham Joshua Heschel wrote this book, The Sabbath, in the midst of that pain and that mourning. And I want to read a section of that. He tells kind of a legend about something that happened between Israel and God. A legend relates that at the time when God was giving the Torah to Israel, he said to them, "My children, if you accept the Torah and observe my mitzvot, I will give you for all eternity a thing most precious that I have in my possession." So if you keep my Torah, if you accept the Torah and observe my mitzvot, I will give you for all eternity a thing most precious that I have in my possession. And what, asked Israel, is that precious thing which thou wilt give us if we obey your Torah? And God answered, the world to come. And Israel then responds, show us in this world an example of the world to come. God responds, the Sabbath is an example of the world to come. The Sabbath is an example of the world to come. A day when we stop working, when we stop saying, hey, you know what? Life is not just about production. Rather, life is about joy. That when God created the earth, God said, it is good, it is good, it is good, it is very good. That the engine of creation is joy. And so this one day where we can remind ourselves, hey, you know what? There's a better world coming. And we can live in that better world now every single week. And so for Heschel, the Sabbath was a source of divine comfort and a source of divine redemption amidst the pain and suffering that he was feeling. Sabbath is a sign and a call to believe that by God's word, because God said it, the immediate will never have the power to defeat the eternal. Whatever's happening in your world right now, the Sabbath is a call to believe that whatever's happening in your world right now, it will never have enough power to defeat the eternal, the world to come, the one that God promised. Sabbath invites us, Heschel says, Sabbath invites us to turn from the world of creation to the creation of the world. Sabbath invites us to turn from the world of creation towards the creation of the world. This is the power of festivals. This is the power of feasts. They are these days to remind ourselves that it's not all on us. To remind ourselves that we serve a God who cared for our ancestors and can still care for us today. To remind ourselves that our worth is not in our production. And it is a reminder that the immediate circumstances cannot overpower the eternal. And so I asked you, what is it that you did every day this week? Because maybe we can take some of those activities that we already have a ritualized performance of and add a little bit more meaning to them, add a little bit more eternity to them. We already have a weekly rhythm of Sabbath, so let's keep that up and let's add even more meaning to it. Let's add even more eternity to it. And let's find these things in our world that we already have a ritual around, and let's add more meaning, more eternity into it so that we can continue to remind ourselves, hey, it's not all on me. There is a greater God who created this whole thing and sustains all of it. And this God is a God of abundance, that there is enough for all of us, that our worth is not in our production. And if we had a weekly rhythm, if we had these annual festivals that continuously reminded us of that, then imagine what's possible in our world today if we stopped believing that we're human doings and we started becoming human beings that were here for the sole purpose of participating in this joy that created the world and is sustaining the world. And we have this beautiful reminder that, hey, whatever's happening right now, it will never have enough power to overcome eternity that we will experience because we have this piece of eternity, the Sabbath. We have this piece of eternity, this festival that we celebrate every year, every month, whatever it may be. This little piece of eternity is my reminder that what's happening right now is not the end. But what's coming, it's a picture of what's coming, of the beauty of this brand new world that is being created right before our eyes. And that is what Leviticus 23 is all about. So, are there any questions for today? How can we rewrite out the cogs and the bricks narrative? Yeah, excellent question. How can we? I actually like the way that you phrase it. Rewrite out that it's essentially a rewiring of our brains, of our psyches to think differently, to view the world differently, and this is why God gave these annual festivals to the people, this was how you rewire your thinking. Is you create new habits, you create new ways of going about life, and eventually you begin to see yourself differently, you begin to see the world differently. And so if we're looking to rewire our brains to view things differently, to view myself not as a human doing, then we have to prioritize the things that make me a human being, right? And primarily prioritizing the times when we stop producing, when we stop doing, and we just focus on being. And so like how this calendar doesn't have any ordinary days in it, we ought to first schedule the times in our lives when we say, you know what, this time is not about doing. This time is not about productivity, right? And even those things, like we can say, okay, I'm going to schedule this time to do Bible study, right? And it can be so easy for that to turn into productivity, that you say, okay, I'm going to spend this time every week. This time is going to be for Bible study. And then it turns into a productive thing where it's like, oh yeah, I want to keep reading though. I want to make sure that I'm getting through the books of the Bible and everything like that. And immediately the thing that we are using to focus on being becomes about doing. And so we have to be cognizant of that. Primarily, there's going to be things that are about stopping. Stop productivity. Celebrate that there's a rejoicing that happens in all of these festivals, that is going to be like something that brings joy and laughter, parties and celebrations. These are the things that we ought to schedule our life around, the things that bring us together as a community. Those are the things that should be prioritized, which will then be able to rewire our brains to say like, no, this is actually the priority. It's good to be productive, it's good to do all of these things, but the priority is actually this thing. But like, this is actually the reason why we're productive, is so when we get here we can say like, oh, it's time, like we're going to shed off all of the weights, all of the stress, and we're just going to celebrate and rejoice, remembering what God has done for us. And so there is this idea that we need to prioritize the things that make us human beings, that remind us that we are human beings, that we have these things that we do every single day. How can we add more meaning to those things? Okay, it's saying that someone, during this time off, what happened to the livestock? What happened to the livestock, the kids, etc.? Oh, I didn't. I at first I didn't understand the question. I thought you were talking about like during this time off, like during quarantine time off. What happened to the? I was like, I don't know. What is happening? I understand your question now. Shh. So it was a time off, so the kids would have been with their parents, they would have been celebrating, they would have been doing all these parties. What it says over and over, it says that do no ordinary work, that there was a distinction between ordinary work and the difference. So like the livestock would still be fed, they would still be, cleaned, whatever, taken care of. Probably not cleaned. They're in the desert, but the livestock would be taken care of so they can still continue to be healthy and everything like that. Uh, but there wasn't any ordinary work done. So you wouldn't go out planting, you wouldn't like go out harvesting, you wouldn't do any of that type of work. But the things that need to happen every day for just your animals to be healthy, that type of thing, that would have been something that would have continued. And then there are a few days where it's like, no, this one's like a total ban on all work, you don't do anything. So basically you make sure that the animals have enough food for a full day, and then you can come back and feed them at that point. So hopefully that answered your question. All right. Thank you for joining in today. May you discover new rituals that can bring eternity into your everyday life. And may God bless you and keep you. May the face of Jesus shine upon you and be gracious to you. And may the fullness of the Spirit dwell within you and give you peace. Happy Sabbath, everybody.